Hey everyone, this week we're talking about attitudes and behaviors and the consistency or lack thereof between the two. And so for your discussion forum, I want you to go back and look at your pre-perspectives quiz. And there were a series of questions about your attitudes or beliefs about various issues and how much you had actually done about them. So I want you to reflect on the discrepancy in your own personal responses to this in your discussion forum, but I also wanted to just share the class responses. So I asked you about a series of issues, and I asked you about how important you thought these issues were. And so this measured your attitudes. And the importance was rated on a scale from 1, not at all important, to 5, extremely important. And then later, I asked you about what behaviors you had actually done related to this topic on a scale of 1, I've done nothing, to 5, I've done a great deal. And what I found, and this is your class's data, was that your attitudes and behaviors were quite inconsistent. So these are the average scores. For homelessness, most people thought it was quite important. The average was 3.875 in terms of your attitudes. However, in terms of your behaviors, the average was only 2.4. So most people had done a little, but not a whole lot. So this was a difference of 1.5. Recycling was probably the one where we saw the biggest discrepancy. So most people rated recycling as somewhat important, an average of 3.78, and your behaviors of what you actually did was 3.5. So there, your attitudes and behaviors line up pretty well. When I asked you about animal issues, there we saw another big discrepancy where most people thought the animal issues were quite important. Actually, that was the one you rated as the most important, with an average of 4.25. And yet you all still are not doing a whole lot to actually help out animals, with an average of 2.78. So we've got about a 1.5 point difference. Same with world hunger, where people are rating this as quite important, but not doing a whole lot to help. And we see the same pattern with world peace. And here we have the biggest kind of discrepancy between the importance or the attitude about it and the behaviors that you all are doing. So I want you to kind of think about that, look at your own responses and see if you had a discrepancy between your attitude and behavior, and think about, how does it feel? What's your response to noticing that, hey, you're saying something is really important, but not actually doing anything about it? This discrepancy between attitudes and behavior is very common, but it probably makes you feel kind of uncomfortable to realize that your behavior are not really in line with your attitudes. And this is essentially the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance. So again, you'll talk more about this in your discussion forums, but I just wanted to show you what that class data looked like.